review. Yeah, but I don't think that's what it has to do with it all. Hello. Try to get Anna Monica in here. So we are back in San Francisco on a cold, sunny day. We're going to have to end a little bit early. We don't have to, but because there is a march over the Golden Gate Bridge today in solidarity with Myanmar, with Burma. And it's been organized by Spirit Rock, Jack Cornfield, and it starts at noon, and it's 20, depending on traffic, 20 minutes or more away. So we're going to leave a little bit, just a couple minutes early. I'm wearing my red. They asked for us to wear red, and we're going to run there. So yeah, we'll see how that is. We'll have you in our thoughts. I know the Spaniards like to protest, and they like to do things like this. So it should be in solidarity with you, ustedes as well, vosotros. And then before we start meditating, I just wanted to say that we had a little vote last week about what to talk about next, and we've decided to talk about the Satipatthana as taught by Bhikkhu Analayo, and there's a course actually going on through Universidad de Zaragoza about this that I'm attending, barely hanging in there, but we will talk about that. But I realized that I forgot to really mention the hindrances, and I think that's essential that we finish up the samadhi, the 8th factor, with a little talk about the hindrances. So I'll finish that up, and then once I do, then we'll go on to Analayo. Nacho always has guests with him. I can't quite see who that is, but it's probably because my glasses are so dirty. Trying to see who that is. I don't quite recognize. And okay, so with Analayo, he has some very specific meditations, and so starting maybe next week, we will practice also a little bit of his technique. But I thought, again, because today we'll just have an introduction, we'll do our normal samatha practice. And then for the last 10 minutes, and this is Analayo, we'll do a more open awareness. Yeah, I think that's it. Is there anybody who, I see now Carlos is on the line. If you guys want to stay on in small groups or whatever, Carlos, I thought I'd make you the co-host or the host, if that's okay. And then, okay, you guys could stay on as long as you want. Okay, so let's find my timer. I have my bell back, so I don't need to use this one. Stephanie. Good. Okay, so if no objections, we will start our meditation. So, and including, I'm going to include a little bit of Bhikkhu Analayo's method, ever so slightly. Best I can tell, and I'm no expert on his teachings, but he does seem to prefer a full body presence. a full-bodied, embodied mindfulness, right? Even from the beginning. So just feeling how that is, feeling your whole body, feeling your posture. If you're sitting or laying down, standing up, no importa, just feel your posture, feel your body, your whole body. Become aware of your body. As the Buddha said, when sitting, we know we are sitting. When lying down, we know we are lying down. And the way we know this is by being aware through our senses. And maybe if you're feeling a little disconnected from your body today, maybe you've been busy running around. I know most of you, it's the end of the day. That's okay. So maybe we use little tools to find our body. We can even touch it with our hands, move it a little bit, give it a little swirl. Deep breath also works very well to find our body. And using those contact points, which hopefully are present. So maybe the connection with the floor, the cushion, the chair, the bed. So whatever it takes to unify the mind and the body, create that mind-body connection, mind-body awareness, that embodied presence. Now the body can be an anchor for your attention, so that when the mind becomes distracted, goes on a little thought trip somewhere, when we notice that, we come back to an anchor, an object. And so it can be the whole body, the body sitting. I find this especially supportive if my mind is really active, busy, busy, busy. I'll go with a more open awareness, use the whole body as an anchor. But if you're feeling relatively calm or, in fact, sleepy, then it is recommended that we use a more narrow object, such as the breath, and maybe even the breath at just one point, the nostrils, the chest, the belly, especially the nostrils if you're tired. And with the breath, you can follow it at one point or its entire journey, or you can even combine it with the body. In fact, even with the full body awareness, we're always aware of the breath as well, maybe in the background, but it's always there. And then if your body or breath is just not comfortable for you today, no problem. You could try using hearing, listening. Just waiting for sounds to come. You might even notice a little buzz inside your head. You can just listen to that. Oddly, in Pali, it's called the nada sound, the no sound, nada. So, whatever supports your practice, pick that as an object, and again, coming back to that object, relaxing into that object, experiencing that object, feeling it. And whenever you notice you're distracted, no criticism, no judgment, just, okay, let's go back again and again. If you find it supportive, helpful, you can always use labels to track your experience. Just one word, one name, label such as inhaling, exhaling, thinking, feeling, returning, whatever works. Keep you in the present moment, keep you connected to your object. So if you are interested, maybe feeling a little more centered, a little more calm, and would like to practice a more open awareness, sometimes called big mind awareness or big sky awareness, you can allow your attention to expand, to grow, to include everything that might be in the field of your awareness. And just watch your mind, watch the changes as things come into your field of awareness and leave. Sounds, sensations, thoughts, the breath. And one way I like to do this is just reminding myself or imagining that I am an observer. I'm like in a tower, observing the world beneath me, around me. And trying to be in or from that observer place. And then just watch, just notice, just observe as things come and go, anicca, the impermanence of all things. So no matter where your mind has been or how your meditation has gone, let's come back to the body. Let's return to that embodied presence, that mind body connection. Feeling whatever might be in the body, depending on how those last moments were. There could be some energy in the body, some tension, some tickling, or maybe nothing. Just feel that body. And then I like to come to the heart center, the heart space, near the chest, in the chest. Feel that area. And thank myself for my practice, for taking care of myself in this way, reminding myself that this is probably the best thing I can do to also care for others, to be more kind, more compassionate. And then let's send out this feeling of goodwill, of thankfulness, gratitude. Send it out in all directions, including everybody on this call, thanking them for their practice. Just imagine this kind, loving awareness, as Ram Dass used to say, Jack Kornfield says. Just imagine it going out in all directions and seeing if you can feel that, maybe at the level of your skin. Is there any energy there? Sometimes even just that thought can kind of create a little buzz. And when you hear the sound of the bell, just being aware whatever arises in the mind, in the body. Again, just being present. Thank you all very much for joining us on this Sunday. So without further ado, I think they say, didn't someone say that? Further ado. We'll talk a little bit about the hindrances. And we've talked about them. They've been mentioned now a few times over the last several weeks. But I thought maybe we'll just kind of focus on them for a second, because they really, I think, are important, not only in the path, the Noble Eightfold Path, but the last factor, that of samadhi, and then even in our regular practice at home, and in our lives, right? Because they are valued, and even though they're hindrances, obstáculos, they're valued in the Buddhist tradition as teachers, right? So we learn from those things that get in our way, right? And probably more so, I think, in the Mahayana traditions, the Zen traditions, Thich Nhat Hanh tradition, they are really thought of as teachers, and hindrances, blockages of mindfulness. And then in the Theravada tradition, which is what we sort of follow a little more strongly, they're also what prevent us from entering the jhanas, which we talked about last week, those states of absorption. And I think some of you were on the call where we even had a little chart put out by Shyla Catherine that showed the hindrance, and then it showed the jhanic factor that is the like antidote or matches up to that hindrance. But that is just kind of a singular point of view of the Theravada and Southeast Asian Buddhists, where deep levels of practice is more popular. It doesn't have to just be, they're not just important in the jhanic field. They're also important in terms of our mindfulness and just how we live our lives. So let me pull it up on my page here. That's Analio. Might be here. And then if I go here, do you guys see 5 hindrances, a little list? Okay, good. So I'd written this some time ago when I used to try to write everything in English and in Spanish, it looks like. But so here are the 5. Sensual desire being the first one. Aversion or ill will being the second. Sloth and torpor, which is an old English way of saying like laziness and apathy, just not caring. Restlessness and worry. And then the last one is called doubt. It's usually called what's the other word that's added to doubt? It's called, it'll come to me. But nevertheless, doubt. Now, each one of these, or maybe I'll say it differently. Each one of us probably has kind of our favorite hindrance, right? The one that seems to come up more than others. So for instance, for me, I think, and I could be wrong, but I think of myself a little bit more as the sensual desiring type, where like I look for things that feel good, right? So even when I practice, I'm kind of looking for kind of a pleasant sensual experience. This is the habit. This is very much about habits, these hindrances. It's the habit of my mind. Looks for something that's pleasant. But then there are others where maybe they lean more towards aversion or ill will, where their tendency might be to not like something, to just want to push it away, right? To change things because they don't like what's going on. It's unpleasant. And these are really 2 sides of the same coin, right? And we can go back and forth, and one really does feed the other. When I did my long retreat of 80 days, and I spent lots of time, looking at the hindrances, I could see how these first 2 really were very connected, where it was like, because I wanted a pleasant experience and I wasn't having one, also then I was averse to the experience I was having. Both were happening at the same time, right? I didn't like the lack of pleasantness, and I wanted, something more profound. So both were active. Now, the sloth and torpor, the next 2, sloth and torpor, restless and worry, these are also like 2 sides of the same coin. And they're a little bit more, I would say, less mental, more physical, oftentimes. Restlessness is definitely can be very much in the head. But the sloth and torpor, a lot of times it's just in the body, or it's in the mind, but the mind is so tired. It just doesn't want to go there, you know? And some people, like I think Anna Monica would agree, that she lends towards the sloth and torpor. Sometimes I have to kick her when we're meditating because she's sloth and torporing. No, I don't think
It's
that's
really
a word.
hard to track because the body becomes comfortable so quickly. It feels skillful to let it settle. And then apparently there's a point in which it settles too much.
And that's the trick, right? Is just feeling so good, so good. Pretty soon you're asleep. And so some people lend towards this, and then some people more like, for me, I'm more of the restless type, right? And the worrying type. Oh my God, I worry a lot. During those 80 days, I was amazed. I never thought of myself as a worrier. I thought my mother was a worrier, but I didn't think I was. But no, I worry a lot. Sometimes about the littlest things. But these factors, these hindrances, these obstáculos can get in the way of us being present, right? They can be so deeply entrenched in our ways and our habits and our tendencies that sometimes they're very difficult to get out. I mean, I'm there 80 days at IMS meditating, and even in the 80th day, these hindrances were present. You know, sometimes they'd be gone, and when they were gone, it was quite nice, but they're deeply rooted. And then the last one, the one that is probably the most insidious, is that a word? The one that's the most tricky, the most confusing is doubt. And it's right in the word, right? When we're doubtful, we're confused, right? We could be a little bit lost, or in ignorance, or so they kind of match up pretty well with the three poisons, especially the first two, right? Greed, hatred, delusion. So the first one, sensual desire, is basically greed, hatred, aversion, the second one, and then this fifth one, doubt, is really the confusion. And that's the one that can really get you tied up in knots, right? You can be doubting even your doubt. It can really become a mess. So these become kind of fun to work with, though, believe it or not, because it's clear. We've got this little list of 5. These have been things that have been worked with for thousands of years. We have a lot of study on it, a lot of commentary, and they can be very helpful when we notice they arise, because with the light of mindfulness, they'll go away. Maybe not forever. Well, of course, not forever, but at least for some time. So just a little bit more about it. The way to overcome the hindrances is to investigate them and understand them, right? See what's underneath, what's causing them. And sometimes it's as simple, like in sloth and torpor, it's very simple. I didn't sleep enough. I'm tired. Could be like that. Or restless and worry, could be very simple, that there's something important out there that I'm concerned about, or I've just had too much caffeine or whatever it is. It might be something simple, and then it might be something that's deeper. Right here, it's about being aware of them. When we aren't aware, they can come and impede our progress. So we want to be aware of them. Now, these are the standard 5 steps that the Buddha recommended for our relationship with our these hindrances. One is to just be aware of the presence of the hindrance when it's there. I know restlessness and worry is present, or I know doubt. What is that other word? It'll come. The presence of the hindrance,
escepticismo.
Say it again.
Escepticismo.
Yes, skeptical doubt. Gracias, Nacho. Skeptical doubt. Which is to me kind of says the same thing in a way. Oops. Skeptical, right? When we're skeptical, that's almost a form of doubt. But yeah, that's the official way it's said. Thank you. So the Buddha, so the presence of the hindrance, we want to be aware of the presence of the hindrance, and we want to be aware of the absence. And this one I really love. Like I had a nice meditation earlier this morning where for a period of time I noticed there was no hindrance, or at least it wasn't strong enough to really be obvious. And it was a very pleasant, effortless meditation period for me because there wasn't any obstacles, there wasn't any hindrance. And then it gets a little different, deeper. The cause for its arising. What is causing it, right? Getting that investigation. The way of its abandoning. How do we let them go? Because they're not always so easy to let go because they are a habit, a tendency that can be deeply, embedded in our nervous system. So letting them go, abandoning them is not always so clear cut. And then going forward, how do we keep them from arising? The way for the non-arising of it in the future. And this is kind of similar. You might remember this in terms of right effort, how we cultivate the good and we try to keep the unwholesome at bay and so forth. So there's quite a bit more, but I think, well, I'm going to read this simile by the Buddha, and then we'll stop with this. But the Buddha has said that to be free of desire, that first one, is to be free of debt. Freedom of aversion is freedom of illness. Freedom from sloth and torpor is like being free from prison. Being free from restlessness is like being freed from slavery. And being free from skeptical doubt is like finding your way after being lost in a desert. Kind of interesting. I hear this is a good thing too. It says, the opposite of the 5 hindrances is the 7 factors of awakening, which we were going to talk about and probably will in the future. But which that second one, of course, is investigation, which is very important. Okay. So just to kind of summarize on that, we can use these hindrances in our daily practice, on our Sundays and, at home, whatever you do. They especially come in handy on retreat because they're the thing that you'll see coming up again and again, because on retreat, you sit again and again, right? And it might be the exact same one, like especially at the beginning, if you're working hard and go, and then you get on retreat, the first thing you usually have is sloth and torpor. And it might go 2-3 days, where you're, or, after that passes, maybe after a couple days, then restlessness and worry might come up. And so we just get to work with them, practice them, see them as our teacher. And if you're lucky, right, there'll be a period where none of them are there. And then your practice just goes. It's just, and if you're really lucky, you might even experience jhanic factors and you could go into the jhanas. Difficult in a short retreat, but, possible in long retreat. Which, by the way, before I forget, I know that Jerome is having a retreat, I believe, starting the 31st of this month, I think 5 days. I don't know exactly how they're going to social distance or if they do that, but Meyama, I might try to be back by that, see if I could get in. I think it's in Salamanca somewhere, not in the barrio, but in the area, in the whatever you call it. Is that a province? Salamanca is a province? Yeah. Okay, are there any preguntas, questions, doubts, dudas, any skeptical dudas about the hindrances? very Buddhist, but useful. It really is useful, and it's widely taught. This isn't some, kind of rare little tidbit list or something.
Hi, it's Robert here. I found that quite useful, actually. I think I probably have all the hindrances at some point in any given week.
Yeah.
So, that's quite useful for me to get some awareness around that, what that might mean, and how to approach those hindrances. So, good one. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we all have all of them, or all of them will arise at some point. And, we kind of lean in one way or another. We have our favorites. Okay, so again, because we're gonna leave a little bit early, like 5 minutes, like 20 of. So we have about 15 minutes, about 5 minutes to do our little metta thing. So why don't we do an introduction to the Satipatthana, so the discourses on mindfulness, and we're going to use Bhikkhu Analayo's translations, and I got the Spanish version. If I don't know if that's backwards in your screen or whether that is readable. Okay. Beautiful little book. He speaks Spanish, but he didn't translate this one, or write it in Spanish. Somebody, Fernando Motecinos Pons. I don't know. Maybe a Mexican guy, but it's beautiful. As I think I mentioned last week, his writing has improved because he's a native German speaker, and so English is not his first language. And his first book was really his PhD thesis, and now this is, I think, his third one, and his writing is definitely improved, flows quite nicely. But what I thought I would do, so someone's asking, I will just put, let's see, should I put it in English or Spanish? Meditación Sati. Am I writing this right? Yeah. And then the important thing about the name is it's a practical guide. It's a practical guide, or a guide to practice. There it is, what I want to say. A guide to practice. Those other ones are a little more theoretical, and this one, I'm missing an I. This one is more about practice. And what he likes to do, or I think Analayo has really made his name, because there's other translators, there's other monks, there's Bhikkhu Bodhi and so forth, is he really likes the teachings as we understand, and how he understands the original teachings from the Buddha. And the way, this I think is quite fascinating, the way he's kind of confirmed to his satisfaction what the Buddha said is he's really spent a lot of time with the Chinese versions of the discourses. So not just the Pali, but he's also gone to the Chinese, and I guess he speaks or reads Chinese. And then, so if he sees them in both places, then he feels confident, this is how I've heard it, that is what the Buddha said. Right? Because there's so much commentary, so much stuff that's been added. It's really kind of hard to distill it down to what did early Buddhism say. And so he's looked at the different branches to try to find commonality. And then that's how he has determined, okay, this is what the Buddha said. And so in the Satipatthana, in the teachings around mindfulness, there's various practices are under mindfulness of body, the first one, right, of the 4 foundations. And I think some of you have been on calls when we've talked about this, or even when we were in person. But so there's mindfulness of the body parts, the atomical parts, right? And in Analayo and on his retreats, he'll go through every one of them, where you're on the liver, or you're on the pus, or you're on the urine, or you're on, it's kind of bad. But anyways, he does that. And he also is rather famous, I think, for working with the elements, the 4 Asian elements. I always get these in the wrong order, but we have earth, wind, water, fire. I think that's the right order. I might have got that right. And I think in the Chinese, they're a slight different order, but in the Indian. And so there's a corresponding body part or characteristic that corresponds to the 4 elements. So he has a practice of that. Like, for the earth, tierra, it's the bones, say, for instance, the more solid mass in the body. For the air element, it's the breath. For the fire element, it's the temperature. And for the water element, lots of different types of water in the body. And he really believes that pursuing the practice in this way, pursuing mindfulness in the way that the Buddha originally taught it, has great benefit for us. And what's interesting about Analayo, as a Theravadan monk ordained in Sri Lanka, he's not big on the jhanas. In fact, he's kind of like one time he told me on retreat, I said, I saw him passing on this long retreat, and I said, I haven't achieved the jhanas yet. And he's like, jhanas, who needs them? Like that to me. Instead, I think he is very interested in mindfulness, sati. And I think, so I'm going to show you next, I think explains maybe why. So this is a printout of something that I obtained from Analayo, and I can't remember if it was a retreat, but that was in Spanish. I'm not exactly sure where I got it. But anyways, this is his translation coming from the Satipatthana. And so this is a conversation, how many of the teachings of the Buddha were. So it said, thus I have heard. We're not too sure who that I was, but thus I have heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One, the Buddha, was living in the Kuru country at a town of the Kurus named Kamasadama. There he addressed the monks thus, monks. And then they replied, Venerable Sir, the Blessed One said this, monks, this is the direct path for the purification of beings, for the surmounting of sorrow and lamentation, for the disappearance of dukkha and discontent, for acquiring the true method for the realization of nibbana. This is the end deal, right? The realization of nibbana, namely the 4 satipatthanas. He didn't say, the Noble Eightfold Path or the 8th factor jhana or whatever. He says the 4 satipatthanas. So I think he, Analayo, Joseph Goldstein, many of the Theravadan trained or influenced teachers of today that you found at Spirit Rock, you find at IMS, you find at Gaia House. What else is a big popular one? Well, even arguably at the Goenka methodology, it is about mindfulness, sati. This is the key to getting us to the cessation of suffering. We don't need to, come into some absorbed state where, we see the pure nature or the nature of pure consciousness or any sort of abstract thing like that. No, we can do it with mindfulness. So here, this is again the Buddha. So what are the four? The four Satipatthanas. Here, monks, in regard to the body, a monk or us, nosotros, abides, contemplating the body, diligent, clearly knowing and mindful, free from desires and discontent in regard to the world. In regard to feelings, now feelings in this case, as you might remember, Vedana is pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. This is what they talk about when they say feelings. In regard to feelings, he abides, contemplating feelings, diligent, clearly knowing and mindful, free from desires and discontent in regard to the world. In regard to the mind, now this is sankharas. These are our tendencies of our mind, our emotions, our habits, whatever they might be. In regard to the mind, he abides, contemplating the mind, diligent, clearly knowing and mindful, free from desires and discontent in regard to the world. And in regard to dhammas, these are the lists, these are the teachings, this is kind of everything else. In regard to dhammas, he abides contemplating dhammas, diligent, clearly knowing and mindful, free from desires and discontent in regard to the world. So these are the four foundations, the four establishments of mindfulness, right? We have the body, we have Vedana, the feelings, we have our locuras, we have our thoughts, our pensamientos, our creencias, our emociones, y todas las cosas. And we have the teachings, which I think there's about, I don't remember exactly, but I think there's 6 lists in this fourth foundation of mindfulness, including the 7 factors of awakening and the Noble Eightfold, or the 4 Noble Truths. So let's see, do I have enough? Just 1 minute to just start. And so here, and this is like Jerome teaches this one very much, and we talked about this one last week. So when we do the body, we start off with the breath. I mean, this is like fundamental. The Buddha, in fact, the Buddha realized his enlightenment while practicing this, while practicing mindfulness of the breath. This is how essential it is in Buddhist teachings. So we don't use mantras. I mean, you can, but we don't use visualizations, although even Bhikkhu Analayo talks about how concepts and so forth can be useful. But the main thing that we teach is the breath, because this is how the Buddha taught it. First one. So real quick, he suggests we go to a forest or the root of a tree or to an empty hut. But you could also go to your bedroom. You could go to Saladana. Yay, Nacho, thanks for keeping it open. And suggest we fold our legs crosswise. If you can do that, sit with the body erect, and we establish mindfulness in front of him. Now this is interesting. In front, it's like right here. Okay, it's not here so much as it's kind of here. Okay, because we're observing it. We're not, mixed in with it. We want it a little bit masaya, a little bit kind of away. Breathing in long, we know we breathe in long. Breathing in short, we know we breathe in short. He's just saying we know how we're breathing, right? Doesn't mean we have to breathe in long, have to breathe in short. But we know. And we train ourselves. I shall breathe in, experiencing the whole body. This is why I really it's one reason I like to encourage us to connect to the whole body, because this is what the Buddha said. He didn't say, just, focus on your nose. No, experiencing the whole body. And breathing out, I experience the whole body. And then training thus, I shall breathe in, calming the bodily formations. So it's even a little active, right? Where we use the breath and this awareness of the breath, this sati, this mindfulness, to calm the sankharas, the activity of the body, to feel more calm. I shall breathe out, calming the bodily formations. And I tell you, you can go so far with just those 4. There's 16 in this group, but just those 4, you don't really need nada más. I mean, you can just do that and gain the benefits of awakening as taught by the Buddha. Okay, whoa. Oh, but I forgot about my, I miscalculated. I wanted to end with a little metta, but I see, what should we do?
You can still say some phrases.
Okay, real
Not as
quick,
good of a thing.
because we're a little worried that if we get to the bridge and then they've already started walking, you know, they might be down the bridge and we don't know where exactly we're going to park. So if you don't mind, and Carlos, I'm going to make you right now host. And I'll leave it on. And so if you guys want to talk afterwards, Carlos will be in charge. Why don't we just do a couple real quick phrases and a dedication, and then Anna Monica and I are going to run, and then we'll see you next week. And thank you all so much for coming. Okay. It's funny, I get so excited teaching the stuff, I lose track of the time. So just briefly, we'll do metta for ourselves and then metta for all beings. So I'll say a phrase, you could say it to yourself and hopefully feel it. May I be happy. May I be well. May I be safe. May I live with ease. May all beings be happy. May all beings be well. May all beings be safe. May all beings live with ease. And this dedication, a sharing of the merit of our practice here today, the teachings, our Buddha nature, and our Sangha. Let's offer this up to the benefit of all beings. May all beings be happy and peaceful, healthy and strong, safe and protected. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, free from war and violence and discrimination and racism, and free from all types of coronavirus. And may all beings find their path towards the end of their suffering, their path towards liberation, towards freedom. May all beings be free. Well, thank you again, you all. Monica's going to end that. Oh, how come it didn't stop?